Welcome to Believe in the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk. This program is an outpouring of the ministry going on at Calvary Chapel Chambersburg in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Here's what's coming up in today's message.
God does not want you to come to him and say, okay, God, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. Would you please make it work out? He doesn't want that unless we first ask before that, okay, God, what is your will here? What do you think I should do? Should I do this or this?
If you're just joining us, please note, this passage contains graphic themes and disturbing content, so parental discretion is strongly advised. Fueled by outrage over the atrocity in Gibeath, the tribes of Israel unite, but not in humility or dependence on God. Instead, they rush forward in their own strength, and the result is tragic. Tens of thousands of Israelites fall in battle before they even begin to ask the Lord for direction. Even in this chaos, we see that God will not be mocked, and that true justice must be aligned with His will, not our own passions. Let's join Pastor Dan in Judges chapter 20 as he continues his message, seeing through the moral decay.
Verse 13, now therefore, deliver to us these men, these children of Belial, or worthlessness, which are of Gibeah, that we may put them to death, and put away this evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. So the rest of the cities of Benjamin, the rest of the people in the tribe of Benjamin, defend them. They want to protect these sinners of Gibeah. And why? There's no reason for this other than they're in it for themselves. They don't care what's right. They don't care what's wrong. They don't care what God's word says. They just want to protect these men that are Benjamites like they are. How sad. How sad. But notice that at least the 11 tribes of Israel, they're intending to judge only the sinners. That's their intention. That's good. That's honorable. That's the way it should be. Again, it's going to go way beyond that, though. Verse 14. But the children of Benjamin, they gathered themselves together out of the cities unto Gibeah. So now the tribe of Benjamin is getting ready for war. They went to Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. In verse 15, the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men that drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 choice men. Among all this people, there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones at a hair's breadth and not miss. You think David, could hit Goliath? There's 700 of them left-handed that can do it. Verse 17, the men of Israel, besides Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these were men of war. So you got 400,000 men of these 11 tribes versus roughly 26,700 men of the tribe of Benjamin. And now in verse 18, the children of Israel rose and they went up to the house of God and they asked counsel of God. And you're like, finally, somebody cares about the Lord. Watch this. So the children of Israel went up to the house of God and they asked counsel of God and said, which of us shall go up first to battle against the children of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. Now look, here's the problem. They already had the plan. They already initiated this. They already gave their counsel on how this is all going to go down. And now they come to God asking God to bless their plan. That's not what he wants. God does not want you to come to him and say, okay, God, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. Would you please make it work out? He doesn't want that unless we first ask before that, okay, God, what is your will here? What do you think I should do? Should I do this or this? If he gives you guidance and says, do this, or gives you a piece about doing something, now you can come to him later and say, okay, God, now I'm praying that you bless this and you help this. Guide me through it. They missed the entire first step of asking God what his will is. What should they do next? They just assumed they knew what to do. Wasn't that the exact same problem back at Ai when they first came into the land? Remember that? They conquered Jericho, and then the very next thing they went to do is they went and tried to conquer Ai, this tiny city. But they never asked God if they should do it or not. And they lost. They didn't know if it was God's will or not. And they certainly didn't have God's hand in that. The reminder is that even on your best day, you will fall. to this world system unless you have God's blessing. When you have God's strength and you're going in God's will, then nothing can stop you. The gates of hell cannot stand against you. Even if you have 400,000 troops against a tiny little 26,000 troops, you will fail unless you have God's blessing. That's the lesson here. And so that's what they're missing. God, we have a plan. Will you bless it? In verse 18. Now, I do want to point out that when God answers them here at the end of verse 18, it said, the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. This would be better interpreted, when you do go up to battle anytime, ever, then Judah goes up first. Remember, he already declared that. Even back in Judges chapter 1, the book opens up with the children of Israel saying, okay, Joshua's gone, so when we go to battle, who should go first? And God answered, Judah goes first. That's always God's answer. This isn't some new revelation from God. Judah always goes first. He said that back even in the blessings of the 12 tribes, back when Jacob blessed the 12 tribes, Judah went first. There's a spiritual lesson there because Judah means praise. Always send praise first. Always turn your attention to God first before anything. That's the lesson to be learned here. He's not saying, okay, I bless your plan, send Judah. He's not saying that. The lesson is that Judah always goes first. You always need to come to God in praise first before making any decisions. And they're not doing it. They're not doing it. Verse 19. The children of Israel, they rose up in the morning and they encamped against Gibeah. We're going to read a long section right now. And the men of Israel, in verse 20, they went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah, and they destroyed down to the ground of the inhabitants of the Israelis that day 22,000 men. So this little tribe of Benjamin won the day. And the people, in verse 22, the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and set their battle again in array in the place where they put themselves in array the first day. And the children of Israel went up and they wept before the Lord until evening. Don't you love it when people come to God crying after they've messed up? And God has compassion, but the whole time you got to know God's sitting there saying, if you'd have come to me first, you wouldn't be here crying now. In verse 23, the children of Israel, they went up and wept before the Lord until evening and asked counsel of the Lord, saying, shall I go up? Well, at least they got that right now. At least now they're asking for God's will on what to do. But why does it take us being humbled? Why does it take us messing up and feeling the pain of it before we remember, oh, I should have asked God first? So they asked God in the middle of verse 23, shall I go up again to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother? And the Lord said, go up. So he did instruct them to do it a second time. And in verse 24, the children of Israel went and came near unto the children of Benjamin the second day. Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men, all that drew sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came into the house of God and wept. And they sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings unto the Lord. Now they're starting to get it right. Right? How much pain do we have to suffer before we finally come to God and do it right? And in verse 27, the children of Israel inquired of the Lord. For the ark of the covenant was there in those days, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the high priest, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And the Lord said, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into thine hand. 2 waves of defeat, back-to-back days, 2 waves of defeat. Thousands dead each day. After they asked the Lord, who should go up first? We got a plan. Who should go up first? And then the second day, shall we go up? And then finally, the third day, they sit humbly weeping before the Lord, saying, God, what do we do here? Burnt offerings. What is that? Remember the picture of whole dedication. God, we've messed up. We are wholly in to listening to you now. You have got our attention. We're here now. If they could have gone into the first day the way they're going into the third day, they would have never had to have a second day, right? But it took them 3 days and the loss of all these lives before they got to that point. Wow. Why would God have them lose twice? Well, a couple of reasons. I'll give you a couple of reasons to think about, okay? Number one, because you can't remove cancer with an infected scalpel. God wants a holy people, a pure people, a people that are looking to God to know, God, what do you want? They should have come to God on the first day with burnt offerings, with peace offerings of fellowship. They should have come on that first day in a humble attitude, the way they did the third day. And they should have said, okay, God, your word says. You know that's the best way to start a prayer. Did you know that? Your word says, right, that you resist the proud, but you give grace to the humble. God, I'm here humbly. Your word says, God, in Deuteronomy 13, that if a city of Israel does this wickedness, that you want us to wipe it out. God, tell us how. What do we do? He answers those prayers. And that's all they had to do. And it took them to this third day to get to that point. Wow. We think the worst enemy is the enemy without. Deal with the enemy within first. And then we'll be prepared to move out and deal with the rest. Let me get that speck out of your eye. Oh, sorry to hit you with that beam, right? Here's another reason why God may have allowed them to lose twice before winning. Because you could do the right thing, but in the wrong way. God doesn't want their victory. He wants their hearts. And he's going to use this conflict and the civil war to get their hearts back. He wants their attention. How about this? They needed to learn to war by weeping first. The biggest battle that needs to be won is the spiritual battle first. The battle of getting ourselves purified before God, the battle of saying, God, I need you for this battle. That's the spiritual battle, and that's what needs to be won first. Do you remember back in Judges? I want to read you something from Judges chapter 3. You don't need to go there. But Judges chapter 3, remember, it opened this way. Now these are the nations which the Lord left in the land for a reason, to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known the wars of Canaan. The wars of Canaan, when Joshua led them to battle and win all of these victories and take the whole land, not every city, but they took the whole land. But there was cities left that they hadn't conquered that were Canaanite cities. And the reason was so that those that outlived Joshua could learn to war. In verse 2, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know to teach them to war, at the least such as before knew nothing of it. There will always be battles in your life that need to be won. And we need to learn to fight the battles. Joshua wept before going into battle. He prayed before going into battle. He brought himself to the Lord. Before any physical battle, he was there to win the spiritual battle. I know somebody else that did that. Jesus. What do you think the Garden of Gethsemane was? You think the cross was the battle? The cross wasn't the battle. The garden was the battle that needed won. When he fought that battle in the garden, the victory was won. The victory was assured. Let me say it that way. That's what assured the victory of the cross. When he conquered his last enemy, the flesh, in the garden, and he won the spiritual fight. The physical fight against the world and the world system and these people that wanted to put him on a physical cross, that was going to happen now because the battle was won in the garden. And these guys need to learn that. It took them to the third day before they learned that. Before they learned that they are an infected scalpel. And if I go out this way, it isn't going to cure the patient. I'll rip out the cancer and cause other problems. It doesn't work. All right, wow, how nasty is this stuff, right? Let's read, I want to read the whole rest of the chapter now. Verse 29, the whole way through the end. I'm just going to read right through that. It just gives the rest of the battle that happens. But there's a couple of significant things that happens. You have to hear it. So now that the Lord just guaranteed them victory in verse 28, now that they're sitting humbly, now that they're sitting ready, Now that they're more purified, the Lord's going to give them victory. And that's the rest of the chapter here. Starting in verse 29 of chapter 20, Israel set their liars in wait round about Gibeah. I'll give it away at the beginning so you can understand the King's English a little better. This is just about a battle plan that you're going to read. That's what it is. It's more of a battle plan than it is a paragraph. Okay? You remember how just like they did at Ai, how they set an ambush, liars in wait are an ambush? And then they had another group of people come up and act like they were going to attack, but then they run away so that they would chase the people out of the city to follow them. And so the liars in wait, the ambush, could get into the city. That's exactly what they're going to do here again. So in verse 29, they had liars in wait around Gibeah. And in verse 30, the children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day and put themselves in array against Gibeah. Now, notice this, just like other times. That phrase is going to keep coming up in this section. Don't forget that. In verse 31, the children of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city, and they began to smite of the people and kill, just like other times. I'm making a point here. We'll get to it. In the highways, and of which one goeth up to the house of God, and to the other to Gibeah in the field, about 30 men of Israel. In verse 32, the children of Benjamin said, they're smitten down before us, just like the other times. But the children of Israel said, let us flee and draw them from the city to the highways. And all the men of Israel rose up out of their place and put themselves in array at Tamar. And the liars in wait of Israel came forth out of their places, even all of the meadows of Gibeah. And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel that were hiding, right? And the battle was sore. But they knew not that evil was near them. And the Lord smote Benjamin before Israel, and the children of Israel destroyed of the Benjamites that day 25,100 men, all these that drew the sword. Do you remember how many there were in Benjamin? About 26,700. Most of Benjamin just got slaughtered. And in verse 36, so the children of Benjamin saw that they were smitten before the men of Israel gave place to the Benjamites, because they trusted in the liars in wait, which they had set beside Gibeah. And in verse 37, the liars in wait hastened, and they rushed upon Gibeah, and they drew themselves along and smote all the city with the edge of the sword. Now there was an appointed sign between the men of Israel and also the men of Israel that were hiding, that they should make a great flame with smoke rise up out of the city. So once the ambush people ran into the city, they would to light it on fire, and that would tell the rest of Israel, hey, we got it. In verse 39, when the men of Israel retired in the battle, Benjamin began to smite and kill the men of Israel, about 30 people, for they said, surely they're smitten down before us, just like the first time. But when the flame began to rise up out of the city with the pillar of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them, and behold, the flame of the city ascended up to heaven. And that's how the Benjamites knew that their city at Gibeah was taken. Verse 41, and when the men of Israel rose again, the men of Benjamin were amazed, for they saw the evil was come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel unto the way of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them, and them which came out of the cities were destroyed in the midst of them. Thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about, and chased them and trod them down with ease, over against Gibeah towards the sun, the east, the sun rising. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men, all these were men of valor. And they turned and fled towards the wilderness unto the rock of Rimmon, and they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000 men, and pursued hard after them in Gittim, and slew 2,000 there. So as they're chasing Benjamin away, that's when they're taking out chunks of them. So that number earlier we read of 25,000, that's what this is. These are, as they're chasing Benjamin away now, they're taking out thousands at a time, which will total up to that 26,000. So that all that fled. Verse 47, but 600, now there's your number you need to know in verse 47. 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock Rimmon, and they stayed there at the rock Rimmon for 4 months. So there's only 600 Benjamites left. And they say it's the rock Rimmon, but it was really a rock fortress. It was a cave system that was elevated in this area. It's not there today, but they would have stayed in this elevated cave-like structure that would have been highly defensible. If they would have been attacked there, it would have been a very difficult battle. So Israel, these 600 Benjamites there, and they were there for 4 months. And then in verse 48, the men of Israel turned again upon the children of Benjamin and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well the men of every city as the beast and all that came to hand. Also they set on fire all the cities that they came to. So everybody that was left of Benjamin throughout the whole tribe area of Benjamin, gone. They take them out. And that part was God's will, to wipe out Gibeah. Now they went so far as to wipe out everybody in the tribe of Benjamin. All of the cities of Benjamin except for these 600. In the law of Moses, it says eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? And people say, oh, that's so harsh. No, you know what it does? It limits the human need for retribution. It limits when you punch me in the eye, I want to take off your head. And that's exactly what just happened here. The rightful thing that God would have called for from Deuteronomy 13 is wipe out the sinners from Gibeah. But yet here, Israel goes so far as they wipe out all of Benjamin except for these 600 that are left. They've just created a problem for themselves that they never should have had to deal with had they just done what God said in Deuteronomy 13. But they went too far. They went beyond that. I want to point out something that I said earlier. Verse 30, verse 31, verse 32, verse 39, all throughout this whole thing that we just read, as we did at the other time, as we did before. This was the same battle plan, guys, as the last 2 times that Israel attacked Benjamin, but this time they won because they had God's blessing. It wasn't because of their strength, because of their great tactics or anything else. It was because they finally had God on their side. When will we learn that lesson? That when we accomplish great things for God, it had nothing to do with our ingenious plan that we came up with. You know? When God does a move in a church, when God brings his spirit and fills a place and brings people, and the spirit of God is moving and people are getting saved and people are growing in grace and truth and the knowledge of the Lord, it has nothing to do with how good we are. It has to do with the fact that you have God's favor. And that's what we pray for. We say, God, let us be pure scalpels so that we can have your favor. We want to be on your side. That's all that was needed. Their battle plan was the same thing as the previous 2 days, and yet this time they win. Because now they're doing it the way God's prescribed it, except they end up at the end of it going too far. Going too far. That's what we need, God's favor. Now, chapter 21, it's a lot shorter. It's going to finish up the whole book of Judges. We're going to read this real quick, and it makes the final lesson, because they just set up their own problem now. They just set up their own problem that was never prescribed because they took out all of Benjamin instead of just the sinners of the city of Gibeon. And so the third chapter now, chapter 21, the third lesson I want you to take away from this time period of moral decay is this. You can't set your own rules without it causing constant conflict. It's just gonna happen. When you're living for your own set of rules, your set of rules is going to conflict with my set of rules, which is going to conflict with their set of rules. It's going to happen. The children of Israel, in doing what they just did, in wiping out all these Benjamites, they did what they thought was right in their own eyes. And even that is going to cause problems that they never intended. The problem now is that they have 600 men of Benjamin hiding out, and the tribe of Benjamin is going to go extinct.
As we close our study on today's Believe in the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk, even though justice was the goal, the Israelites' approach was flawed and bloody. Civil war claimed tens of thousands of lives, including many from their own people. And even though the wickedness in Gibeah demanded a response, Israel's method of justice showed they were not much different than the sin they set out to punish. God's word reminds us that justice without humility leads to destruction, and vengeance never brings the healing our hearts need. If today's message resonated with you in your spirit, we would love to hear from you. You can call us at 717-500-1102. Again, that phone number is 717-500-1102, or you can visit cchambersburg.org. To hear more teachings from the Book of Judges and beyond, visit our website and click on the Media and Radio tab for our full archive, or download the Calvary Chapel Chambersburg app to listen anytime. While you're online, we invite you to learn more about our fellowship and our heart for ministry. And if you are nearby, come worship with us at our new and expanded location. That location is 5121 Coffee Avenue, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, 17201. Thanks for spending time with us today. We look forward to continuing through the Book of Judges together as we conclude the Book of Judges next time. This has been Believe in the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk.